Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a close look at something often lumped together, but actually really distinct: traditional cybersecurity versus blockchain security. You're probably, pretty familiar with cybersecurity protecting data, company networks, that sort of thing. But what happens when you shift to the decentralized world of blockchain? How does security even work when there's no middleman, no central point to defend?
That's exactly what we want to unpack today. We've looked at the source material and pulled out the key things that show these differences. It's not just about what's different, but really why it matters for anyone dealing with digital stuff: developers, auditors, users, you name it. And honestly, some of these shifts, they really change how you think about trust and protection.
Okay, that sounds fascinating, like rethinking trust itself. So let's dive right in. Where should we start? Maybe with how security is even conceptualized.
The basic idea. Yeah, okay. So in traditional cybersecurity, it's very much this perimeter model. Think of it like building a digital castle wall around your valuable data and systems.
Right, a fortress. Exactly. The main goal is stopping anyone unauthorized from getting past that wall. Once someone is inside, maybe an employee or a trusted system, there's this assumption of trust, at least partly.
So most effort goes into that boundary, making it strong.
Precisely. Fortify the perimeter, control who gets in. That's the classic approach.
Okay, but blockchain just flips that on its head, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There is no perimeter in the same sense. It runs on this huge, decentralized, peer-to-peer network, global even.
So no central wall to defend, because there's no center.
Exactly. By definition, no central perimeter.
Yeah.
So security has to come from somewhere else, and it comes from, an incredible amount of repetition and consensus.
Repetitious.
Yeah, every node, every computer participating in the network keeps the exact same copy of the ledger.
Yeah.
The entire history. And they all work together to agree that's the majority consensus part on what the correct verified data is.
Okay. So to cheat the system.
To cheat the system, an attacker would need to somehow take over and control a majority of all those independent nodes all at once, which, given the scale and the computing power needed, is practically impossible.
So the structure is the security, the decentralization itself.
That's the core idea. It's fascinating, isn't it? The architecture provides the defense, not a specific boundary wall.
That's a huge mental shift. Okay, so if there's no wall, what does that mean for protecting data? Does it make some attacks impossible or just different?
It makes them different and often much, much harder. You're not attacking one weak point. You'd need this massive coordinated attack across potentially thousands or millions of machines. It changes the whole game. The focus shifts from, say, network intrusion to the actual integrity of the protocol, the rules of the system itself.
Okay, that makes sense. Distributed trust, distributed defense. But what about the code, the actual software running? How does trust and where the code comes from, the code lineage, differ?
Right. In traditional software, it's usually simpler. Your code. You either write it yourself, in-house, or you buy it from one specific company, a trusted vendor, like a big business system.
Yeah. And you place your trust in your own team or in that one vendor. You do your checks on that single source.
Makes sense. Limited points of trust.
But blockchain sounds messier.
It can be, yeah. Especially with smart contracts. These are bits of code that run automatically on the blockchain. Now, the thing is, your smart contract might need to interact with or call code from other smart contracts.
Okay.
And you, the developer writing the main contract, might not have written those other ones. They could come from anywhere, really. Different authors, maybe people you don't know, maybe code that isn't fully vetted.
So you're building on potentially unknown foundations.
Exactly. It's kind of like building something critical, using parts from a huge open bazaar instead of a single trusted factory. You have to spend a lot more time and energy making sure all the code you're interacting with is safe.
Because the risk is inheriting problems.
Precisely. You risk inheriting security vulnerabilities from those other smart contracts you're calling. Problems written by someone else entirely.
Wow, okay. That sounds like it really expands the scope of what developers need to worry about. How do people even manage that? Checking all these layers of potentially inherited code. Are there new tools for this?
There are, definitely. Tools for static analysis, formal verification, things designed specifically for smart contract security are getting better all the time. And the community relies a lot on, open source code where many eyes can look at it, and on professional audits. But it's still complex. A bug in one widely used contract could cause ripples everywhere. It's less about the perimeter, more about deep code auditing and understanding all those connections.
Meticulous code work, then. Okay, that dependency issue is huge. Which brings us to the last point, I think, the actual hardware. Where does this stuff run?
Right, so traditional applications, they usually run on hardware you trust, either machines your company owns and controls directly.
In your own data center, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they run in the cloud, but on hardware provided by big, trusted companies. Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud.
Right, there's a high degree of trust in that infrastructure provider. You assume a certain level of physical and operational security.
Okay, so that's the baseline. What about blockchain?
Well, here's another fundamental difference. All that blockchain code, all those smart contracts, they run on completely untrusted resources.
Untrusted, meaning?
Meaning the hardware could belong to literally anyone, anywhere in the world. Think about those nodes we mentioned. They're run by individuals, companies, groups all over the globe. You, as the developer or user, have zero direct control or access to the actual machines supporting the network. It's massively distributed.
So if you can't trust the hardware,
Yeah.
where does the trust come from?
It has to come from the protocol and the code itself. The rules, the blockchain, the cryptography, the consensus mechanism, the integrity of the smart contracts. That's the layer where all the trust resides, because you simply cannot rely on the underlying physical hardware being secure or trustworthy in the traditional sense.
This really does raise a big question then. Where is the ultimate security guarantee? It's not in the box, not in the building.
It's in the math, the code, and the collective agreement. That's the paradigm shift.
So if we sort of pull all this together, the perimeter idea vanishing, the code coming from everywhere, the hardware being untrusted, it really feels like blockchain isn't just tweaking security, it's rebuilding the whole concept of digital trust from the ground up.
Yeah, what we've talked through makes it super clear, I think. Blockchain security isn't just, cybersecurity version 2.0. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking. It forces us to rethink defensive lines, code origins, even the physical layer. It's a whole new model for trust online. Absolutely. Yeah. And that leads to a final thought, maybe for you listeners to ponder. If that foundation of trust in blockchain is built entirely on the strength of its protocol and its code, because you can't trust anything else, what new challenges, but also what new opportunities does that create for auditors, for developers, for all of us using this tech in the future? It invites us to see security less as a static wall and more as this dynamic, ongoing cryptographic process.
A dynamic dance. That's a good way to put it. So maybe think about how these very different security models might shape your own view of technology. Is that castle wall idea still the main thing, or are we all slowly moving towards this more distributed, maybe trustless, but trustworthy future? Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.